Have you ever believed that one bigger paycheck would finally solve everything? That if you could just make another $10,000, another 20, maybe even 6 figures, life would finally become peaceful? Most people think money changes your lifestyle. They're wrong. Money changes your identity, and every salary creates a different version of you. Tonight, we're walking through 9 lives. Same person, same dreams, different paycheck. But pay close attention, because somewhere along the way, the thing you thought you were chasing quietly changes. And by the end, you'll realize the biggest transformation was never in your bank account. It was inside your mind. Level 1. $20,000. Your alarm goes off before sunrise, not because you're ambitious, because missing one shift isn't an inconvenience, it's a crisis. You don't wake up thinking about purpose. You wake up calculating. Gas, rent, groceries. Which bill can wait another week? Every dollar already belongs to something before it reaches your account. Your apartment isn't really yours. It's a room inside someone else's house. Their rules, their noise, their life. You simply rent a corner of it. Your car rattles every morning like it's negotiating another day. Every strange sound feels expensive. Then, one afternoon, you stand in line, buying nothing extraordinary, just the essentials. The cashier smiles. Your card declines. Not because you're irresponsible, not because you're reckless, because your money hasn't arrived yet. The people behind you don't say anything. They don't have to. Embarrassment speaks louder than words. You step aside. Refresh your banking app. Again. Still nothing. And in that moment, you don't feel poor. You feel powerless. Because money isn't just buying food anymore. It's deciding how much dignity you get to keep. At the lowest income level, you don't manage money. Money manages you. Every decision becomes survival math. Every mistake becomes expensive. Every dream becomes tomorrow's problem. But here's the dangerous part. Most people think this feeling disappears with a bigger paycheck. It doesn't. It simply changes its face. Level 2. $35,000. The first direct deposit feels different. For the first time, the numbers don't immediately disappear. You rent your own apartment. Nothing luxurious, 1 bedroom, small kitchen, a door that locks behind you. Silence. Real silence. You never knew silence could feel expensive. You fill your gas tank completely. It seems ridiculous now, but watching that pump finally stop on full feels like winning something. You buy new shoes, not designer shoes, just shoes that aren't falling apart. And somehow, you stand a little taller wearing them. Life isn't comfortable, but it finally feels possible. You stop asking, how do I survive this week? And begin asking, what could my life become? That single question changes everything. This is the first invisible transformation. You stop living one paycheck ahead and start living one possibility ahead. The future finally exists, not because you're wealthy, because survival is no longer screaming louder than your imagination. But hope has a strange side effect. Once you can finally breathe, you start looking around, and that's when comparison begins. Level 3. $50,000. You're doing everything people told you to do. You studied, you found stable work, bills are paid, the refrigerator is full. Dinner doesn't require checking your bank account first. Years ago, this would have felt like success. Now, it feels normal. And normal is surprisingly dangerous. One evening, you look around the office. Someone a few desks away earns significantly more than you. Same building, same hours, different life. Suddenly, you stop measuring yourself against who you were. You begin measuring yourself against who you could become. The fear that once motivated you disappears. Something replaces it. Disappointment. Not dramatic disappointment, quiet disappointment. The kind that whispers, "Is this really all there is?" You realize something uncomfortable. Average isn't failure, but it isn't freedom either. There comes a point where comfort becomes invisible. The life you once dreamed about quietly becomes your baseline. And once that happens, you immediately begin dreaming again. Because human desire doesn't retire, it relocates. This is where many people become trapped. Not because they lack money, because they lose direction. So what happens when you finally earn enough that money stops shouting? You discover a voice you've ignored your entire life.
Level 4, $75,000. Something changes. Not in your wallet, in your mornings. You wake up, and money isn't your first thought anymore. That silence feels unfamiliar. You move into a better place. Cook meals because you enjoy cooking. Book a trip without waiting months for the perfect discount. Small decisions, huge psychological consequences. For the first time, you're choosing your life instead of negotiating with it. People begin calling you successful. You smile politely, but inside, it doesn't feel true, because from where you're standing, you can already see the next mountain. Success keeps moving every time you reach it. You stopped asking, "What can I afford?" You started asking, "What kind of life do I actually want?" That sounds like a small difference. It isn't. One question builds income, the other builds identity, and identity always outlasts income. Then, finally, it happens. The number everyone talks about, the number that supposedly changes everything, 6 figures, or so you've been told. Level 5, $100,000. The first paycheck feels unreal. You stare at the number longer than necessary. Years of effort, late nights, missed weekends, risk, persistence. It all led here. You expect fireworks. Instead, life quietly continues. The coffee tastes the same. The morning traffic still exists. Your stress hasn't disappeared. It has simply evolved. You upgrade your apartment. You eat better food. You wear nicer clothes. But something unexpected happens. The excitement fades much faster than you imagined. You spent years chasing 6 figures and only weeks living inside them before they became normal. That's when the realization hits. You weren't chasing the money. You were chasing the feeling you imagined money would create. Those aren't the same thing. Income creates options, not meaning. Money can remove pressure. It cannot decide your purpose. That decision still belongs to you. And that's where the real journey begins. Because once survival disappears, you're forced to answer a much harder question. If money is no longer the problem, then what is? The next level doesn't just bring a bigger paycheck. It changes your relationships, your conversations, your definition of freedom. And for the first time, success starts costing something money can't replace. You thought earning more money would simplify life. Instead, it begins asking questions that no paycheck can answer. Because once survival disappears, character becomes visible. Level 6, $150,000. On paper, life looks impressive. The apartment is beautiful. The vacations aren't weekend escapes anymore. You fly because you want to, not because tickets finally went on sale. The car starts every morning without making you nervous. Your emergency fund exists, not as a dream, as a reality. But the biggest change isn't something you own. It's something you slowly lose: perspective. One afternoon, an old friend calls. They don't ask how you've been. They ask if you can lend them money. Years ago, you would have been the one making that call. Now you're on the other side. The amount feels small to you, life-changing to them. You transfer it without hesitation. They thank you with a level of gratitude that makes you uncomfortable, not because of the money, because you suddenly realize you no longer remember what desperation feels like, not completely. The distance didn't appear overnight. It accumulated quietly. Success didn't separate your lives. Experience did. You stopped measuring wealth by your paycheck. You started measuring it by your choices. Can you leave a job that drains you? Can you spend time with family without worrying about missing income? Can you say no without fear? Freedom isn't having more. Freedom is needing less permission. But freedom introduces a new challenge. Once money stops controlling your calendar, what deserves your time? Level 7, $250,000. Something invisible happens. You don't notice it immediately until one dinner changes everything. Nobody looks at the menu prices. Nobody asks to split the bill. Nobody suggests the cheaper restaurant. Not because anyone is showing off, because money is no longer the deciding factor. The conversations change too. People talk about investments instead of overtime, ownership instead of income, leverage instead of hours. You realize something unsettling. Every environment teaches a different definition of success. The people surrounding you are shaping your ambitions without saying a word. You aren't climbing alone anymore. You're climbing with a different crowd. And while your world becomes larger, your circle becomes smaller. Some friendships naturally fade, not through arguments, through silence. You stop explaining your life. They stop asking about it. Neither side is wrong. You're simply living different realities.
Income changes your lifestyle. Environment changes your future. The people around you quietly decide what feels normal and what feels impossible. Choose them carefully. But even now, there is another lesson waiting, one that almost nobody expects. Because eventually, money stops being the thing you protect. Time becomes priceless. Level 8, $500,000. You stop checking price tags, not because you're careless, because your calculations have changed. The question is no longer, can I afford this? It's, is this worth my time? Time becomes your most expensive asset. You pay for convenience, for speed, for expertise. You delegate tasks you once insisted on doing yourself. At first, it feels strange, almost guilty. Then you understand, money can always return. Time never negotiates. But success carries another hidden cost. You look back at the person you used to be, the one eating cheap meals between shifts, the one praying the debit card wouldn't decline. That person feels familiar and strangely distant. You miss their hunger, their urgency, their appreciation for small victories. Somewhere along the climb, life became easier, but it also became quieter. The struggle disappeared, and with it, some of the clarity that struggle once provided. You stopped working for money. Money started working for you. But that's not the real transformation. The real transformation is realizing your life is no longer measured in dollars. It's measured in days. Every decision asks the same question: is this worth a piece of my life? Most people think $500,000 buys happiness. It doesn't. It buys distance. Distance from financial emergencies. Distance from stress. Distance from the version of yourself who once believed money was the answer. And distance changes people, whether they notice it or not. Money cannot give your life meaning. It only gives you the freedom to discover whether meaning was there all along. Without purpose, even abundance begins to feel empty. Then comes the number everyone dreams about, the number that sounds almost mythical: $1 million a year. Surely, this is where the story ends. Except, it doesn't. It begins again. Level 9, $1 million. At this level, nobody talks about income. They talk about influence. You're invited into rooms where decisions affect companies, communities, industries. People seek your judgment more than your wallet, because capital is valuable, but wisdom compounds even faster. Yet one memory never leaves. Some nights you remember the parking lot, the cheap meal, the cracked phone, the empty gas tank, the embarrassment of refreshing your banking app while strangers waited behind you. The memory is vivid, not because of the money, because of the person standing there. They believed one bigger paycheck would finally make them feel complete. If only they could see you now. They would be shocked by the house, the opportunities, the freedom. But they would also ask one question: are we finally happy? And after everything, after every raise, every promotion, every milestone, the answer surprises even you. Happiness was never hiding inside a salary. It appeared in moments, relationships, purpose, growth. The paycheck simply gave those things room to breathe. You stopped asking, how much money can I make? You started asking, who am I becoming? Because every promotion changes your income, but every decision changes your character. Only one of those lasts forever. Money is a magnifier. It doesn't create identity, it reveals it. The generous become more generous. The fearful become more fearful. The grateful become more grateful. And the empty discover that no number can fill what purpose was meant to occupy. Right now, somewhere, someone is sitting alone in a parking lot. They're eating the cheapest meal they could find. Their phone screen is cracked. Their gas tank is almost empty. They're refreshing their banking app, hoping the money arrives before the next bill does. They think they're fighting for a bigger paycheck, but they're fighting for something much larger, a different future, a different identity, a different version of themselves. Because every 2 weeks, a paycheck lands in your account, but every single day, life deposits something far more valuable: perspective, discipline, character, the courage to keep moving when no one is watching. In the beginning, you believed money was changing your life. Now you understand something deeper. Money never truly measured your worth. It measured the distance between the person you were and the person you chose to become. That declined card wasn't the beginning of your financial story. It was the beginning of your transformation. And perhaps the next transformation has nothing to do with the next salary at all. It begins with the next decision you make.